we both again. Last one's 2 hours. Was quite a long one, wasn't it? Was a release time this one because we did something a bit different than normal. And what didn't take as much energy. By much energy I mean it wasn't the same thing over and over again. Literally for now. We listen to a podcast. That's WhatsApp, not podcast. Not podcast book.
Most recent information. They don't know we have it. But even so, it's likely that new pods have been activated in the last few months. This is what you will face. I'm unaware that my feet are moving to the table until I'm inches from the holograph. My hand reaches in and cups a rapidly blinking green light. Someone joins me. His body tense. Finnick, of course. Because only a victor would see what I see so immediately. The arena. Laced with pods controlled by game makers. Finnick's fingers caress a steady red glow over a doorway. Ladies and gentlemen. His voice is quiet, but mine rings through the room. Let the 76th Hunger Games begin! I laugh, quickly, before anyone has time to register what lies beneath the words I have just uttered. Before eyebrows are raised, objections are uttered, 2 and 2 are put together, and the solution is that I should be kept as far away from the capital as possible. Because an angry, independently thinking victor with a layer of psychological scar tissue too thick to penetrate is maybe the last person you want on your squad. I don't even know why you bothered to put Finnick and me through training, Plutarch, I say. Yeah, we're already the 2 best equipped soldiers you have, Finnick adds cockily. Do not think that fact escapes me, he says with an impatient wave. Now, back in line, soldiers O'Dare and Everdeen. I have a presentation to finish. We retreat to our places, ignoring the questioning looks thrown our way. I adopt an attitude of extreme concentration as Plutarch continues, nodding my head here and there, shifting my position to get a better view, all the while telling myself to hang on until I can get to the woods and scream. Or curse. Or cry. Or maybe all 3 at once. If this was a test, Finnick and I both pass it. When Plutarch finishes and the meeting's adjourned, I have a bad moment when I learn there's a special order for me. But it's merely that I skip the military haircut because they would like the Mockingjay to look as much like the girl in the arena as possible at the anticipated surrender. For the cameras, you know. I shrug to communicate that my hair length's a matter of complete indifference to me. They dismiss me without further comment. Finnick and I gravitate toward each other in the hallway. What will I tell Annie? He says under his breath.
Okay.
Nothing, I answer. That's what my mother and sister will be hearing from me. Bad enough that we know we're heading back into a fully equipped arena. No use dropping it on our loved ones. If she sees that holograph, he begins. She won't. It's classified information. It must be, I say. Anyway, it's not like an actual games. Any number of people will survive. We're just overreacting because, well, you know why. You still want to go, don't you? Of course. I want to destroy snow as much as you do, he says. It won't be like the others, I say firmly, trying to convince myself as well. Then the real beauty of the situation dawns on me. This time, Snow will be a player too. Before we can continue, Haymitch appears. He wasn't at the meeting, isn't thinking of arenas, but something else. Joanna's back in the hospital. I assumed Joanna was fine, had passed her exam, but simply wasn't assigned to a sharpshooter's unit. She's wicked throwing an axe, but about average with a gun. Is she hurt? What happened? It was while she was on the block. They tried to ferret out a soldier's potential weaknesses, so they flooded the street, says Haymitch. This doesn't help. Joanna can swim. At least I seem to remember her swimming around some in the quarter quell. Not like Finnick, of course, but none of us are like Finnick. So? That's how they tortured her in the Capitol. Soaked her and then used electric shocks, says Hamish. In the block, she had some kind of flashback. Panicked, didn't know where she was. She's back under sedation. Finnick and I just stand there, as if we've lost the ability to respond. I think of the way Joanna never showers. How she forced herself into the rain like it was acid that day. I had attributed her misery to the morphling withdrawal. You two should go see her. You're as close to friends as she's got, says Hamish. That makes the whole thing worse. I don't really know what's between Joanna and Finnick, but I hardly know her. No family, no friends. Not so much as a token from Seven to set beside her regulation clothes in her anonymous drawer. Nothing. I better go tell Plutarch. He won't be happy. Hamish continues. He wants as many victors as possible for the cameras to follow in the Capitol. Thinks it makes for better television. Are you and Beatty going? I ask. As many young and attractive victors as possible. Hamish corrects himself. So, no. We'll be here. Finnick goes directly down to see Joanna, but I linger outside a few minutes until Boggs comes out. He's my commander now, so I guess he's the one to ask for any special favors. When I tell him what I want to do, he writes me a pass so that I can go to the woods during reflection, provided I stay within sight of the guards. I run to my compartment, thinking to use the parachute, but it's so full of ugly memories. Instead, I go across the hall and take one of the white cotton bandages I brought from 12. Square, sturdy, just the thing. In the woods, I find a pine tree and strip handfuls of fragrant needles from the boughs. After making a neat pile in the middle of the bandage, I gather up the sides, give them a twist, and tie them tightly with a length of vine, making an apple-sized bundle. At the hospital room door, I watch Joanna for a moment, realize that most of her ferocity is in her abrasive attitude. Stripped of that, as she is now, there's only a slight young woman, her wide-set eyes fighting to stay awake against the power of the drugs, terrified of what sleep will bring. I cross to her and hold out the bundle. "What's that?" she says hoarsely. Damp edges of her hair form little spikes over her forehead. "I made it for you. Something to put in your drawer." I place it in her hands. "Smell it." She lifts the bundle to her nose and takes a tentative sniff. "Smells like home." Tears flood her eyes. "That's what I was hoping. You being from 7 and all," I say. "Remember when we met? You were a tree. Well, briefly." Suddenly, she has my wrist in an iron grip. "You have to kill him, Katniss." "Don't worry." I resist the temptation to wrench my arm free. "Swear it. On something you care about," she hisses. I swear it. On my life. But she doesn't let go of my arm. "On your family's life," she insists. "On my family's life," I repeat. I guess my concern for my own survival isn't compelling enough. She lets go and I rub my wrist. "Why do you think I'm going anyway, brainless?" That makes her smile a little. I just needed to hear it. She presses the bundle of pine needles to her nose and closes her eyes. The remaining days go by in a whirl. After a brief workout each morning, my squad's on the shooting range full-time in training. I practice mostly with a gun, but they reserve an hour a day for specialty weapons, which means I get to use my Mockingjay bow, Gale his heavy militarized one. The trident Beatty designed for Finnick has a lot of special features, but the most remarkable is that he can throw it, press a button on a metal cuff on his wrist, and return it to his hand without chasing it down. Sometimes we shoot at peacekeeper dummies to become familiar with the weaknesses in their protective gear. the chinks in the armor, so to speak. If you hit flesh, you're rewarded with a burst of fake blood. Our dummies are soaked in red. It's reassuring to see just how high the overall level of accuracy is in our group. Along with Finnick and Gale, the squad includes 5 soldiers from 13. Jackson, a middle-aged woman who's Boggs' second in command, looks kind of sluggish but can hit things the rest of us can't even see without a scope. Far-sighted, she says. There's a pair of sisters in their 20s named League. We call them League 1 and League 2 for clarity, who are so similar in uniform I can't tell them apart until I notice League 1 has weird yellow flecks in her eyes. 2 older guys, Mitchell and Holmes, never say much but can shoot the dust off your boots at 50 yards. I see other squads that are also quite good, but I don't fully understand our status until the morning Plutarch joins us. Squad 451, you have been selected for a special mission, he begins. I bite the inside of my lip, hoping against hope that it's to assassinate Snow. We have numerous sharpshooters, but rather a dearth of camera crews. Therefore, we've handpicked the 8 of you to be what we call our Star Squad. You will be the on-screen faces of the invasion. Disappointment, shock, then anger run through the group. What you're saying is we won't be in actual combat, snaps Gale. You will be in combat, but perhaps not always on the front line, if one can even isolate a front line in this type of war, says Plutarch. None of us wants that. Finnick's remark is followed by a general rumble of assent, but I stay silent. We're going to fight. You're going to be as useful to the war effort as possible, Plutarch says, and it's been decided that you are of most value on television. Just look at the effect Katniss had running around in that Mockingjay suit. Turned the whole rebellion around. Do you notice how she's the only one not complaining? It's because she understands the power of that screen. Actually, Katniss isn't complaining because she has no intention of staying with the Star Squad. But she recognizes the necessity of getting to the capital before carrying out any plan. Still, to be too compliant may arouse suspicion as well. But it's not all pretend, is it? I ask. That'd be a waste of talent. Don't worry, Plutarch tells me. You'll have plenty of real targets to hit, but don't get blown up. I've got enough on my plate without having to replace you. Now get to the capital and put on a good show. The morning we ship out, I say goodbye to my family. I haven't told them how much the capital's defenses mirror the weapons in the arena, but my going off to war is awful enough on its own. My mother holds me tightly for a long time. I feel tears on her cheek, something she suppressed when I was slated for the games. Don't worry, I'll be perfectly safe. I'm not even a real soldier, just one of Plutarch's televised puppets. I reassure her. Prim walks me as far as the hospital doors. How do you feel? Better, knowing you're somewhere Snow can't reach you, I say. Next time we see each other, we'll be free of him, says Prim firmly. Then she throws her arms around my neck. Be careful. I consider saying a final goodbye to Peeta, decide it would only be bad for both of us. But I do slip the pearl into the pocket of my uniform, a token of the boy with the bread. A hovercraft takes us to, of all places, 12, where a makeshift transportation area has been set up outside the fire zone. No luxury trains this time, but a cargo car packed to the limit with soldiers in their dark gray uniforms, sleeping with their heads on their packs. After a couple of days' travel, we disembark inside one of the mountain tunnels leading to the capital and make the rest of the 6-hour trek on foot, taking care to step only on a glowing green paint line that marks safe passage to the air above. We come out in the rebel encampment, a 10-block stretch outside the train station where Peeta and I made our previous arrivals. It's already crawling with soldiers. Squad 451 is assigned a spot to pitch its tents. This area has been secured for over a week. Rebels pushed out the peacekeepers, losing hundreds of lives in the process. The capital forces fell back and have regrouped farther into the city. Between us lie the booby-trapped streets, empty and inviting. Each one will need to be swept of pods before we can advance. Mitchell asks about hoverplane bombings. We do feel very naked pitched out in the open, but Boggs says it's not an issue. Most of the capital's air fleet was destroyed in 2 or during the invasion. If it has any craft left, it's holding on to them, probably so Snow and his inner circle can make a last-minute escape to some presidential bunker somewhere if needed. Our own hoverplanes were grounded after the capital's anti-aircraft missiles decimated the first few waves. This war will be battled out on the streets with, hopefully, only superficial damage to the infrastructure and a minimum of human casualties. The rebels want the capital, just as the capital wanted 13. After 3 days, much of Squad 451 risks deserting out of boredom. Cressida and her team take shots of us firing. They tell us we're part of the disinformation team. If the rebels only shoot Plutarch's pods, it will take the capital about 2 minutes to realize we have the holograph. So there's a lot of time spent shattering things that don't matter to throw them off the scent. Mostly we just add to the piles of rainbow glass that's been blown off the exteriors of the candy-colored buildings. I suspect they are intercutting this footage with the destruction of significant capital targets. Once in a while, it seems a real sharpshooter's services are needed. 8 hands go up, but Gale, Finnick, and I are never chosen. It's your own fault for being so camera-ready, I tell Gale. If looks could kill. I don't think they quite know what to do with the 3 of us, particularly me. I have my Mockingjay outfit with me, but I've only been taped in my uniform. Sometimes I use a gun, sometimes they ask me to shoot with my bow and arrows. It's as if they don't want to entirely lose the Mockingjay, but they want to downgrade my role to foot soldier. Since I don't care, it's amusing rather than upsetting to imagine the arguments going on back in 13. While I outwardly express discontent about our lack of any real participation, I'm busy with my own agenda. Each of us has a paper map of the capital. The city forms an almost perfect square. Lines divide the map into smaller squares, with letters along the top and numbers down the side to form a grid. I consume this, noting every intersection and side street. But it's remedial stuff. The commanders here are working off Plutarch's holograph. Each has a handheld contraption called a holo that produces images like I saw in command. They can zoom into any area of the grid and see what pods await them. The holo's an independent unit, a glorified map, really, since it can neither send nor receive signals, but it's far superior to my paper version. A holo is activated by a specific commander's voice, giving his or her name. Once it's working, it responds to the other voices in the squadron, so if, say, Boggs were killed or severely disabled, someone could take over. If anyone in the squad repeats Nightlock 3 times in a row, the holo will explode, blowing everything in a 5-yard radius, sky high. This is for security reasons in the event of capture. It's understood that we would all do this without hesitation. So what I need to do is steal Boggs's activated holo and clear out before he notices. I think it would be easier to steal his teeth. On the 4th morning, Soldier League 2 hits a mislabeled pod. It doesn't unleash a swarm of mutation gnats, which the rebels are prepared for, but shoots out a sunburst of metal darts. One finds her brain. She's gone before the medics can reach her. Plutarch promises a speedy replacement. The following evening, the newest member of our squad arrives. With no manacles, no guards, strolling out of the train station with his gun swinging from the strap over his shoulder. There's shock, confusion, resistance, but 451 is stamped on the back of PETA's hand in fresh ink. Boggs relieves him of his weapon and goes to make a call. It won't matter, Peeta tells the rest of us. The president assigned me herself. She decided the Propos needed some heating up. Maybe they do. But if Coin sent Peeta here, she's decided something else as well. That I'm of more use to her dead than alive. Part 3. The Assassin. Chapter 19. I've never really seen Boggs angry before. Not when I've disobeyed his orders or puked on him, not even when Gale broke his nose. But he's angry when he returns from his phone call with the president. The first thing he does is instruct Soldier Jackson, his second in command, to set up a 2-person round-the-clock guard on Peeta. Then he takes me on a walk, weaving through the sprawling tent encampment until our squad is far behind us. He'll try to kill me anyway, I say, especially here, where there are so many bad memories to set him off. I'll keep him contained, Katniss, says Boggs. Why does Coin want me dead now? I ask. She denies she does, he answers. But we know it's true, I say, and you must at least have a theory. Boggs gives me a long, hard look before he answers. Here's as much as I know. The president doesn't like you. She never did. It was Peeta she wanted rescued from the arena, but no one else agreed. It made matters worse when you forced her to give the other victors immunity. But even that could be overlooked in view of how well you've performed. Then what is it? I insist. Sometime in the near future, this war will be resolved. A new leader will be chosen, says Boggs. I roll my eyes. Boggs, no one thinks I'm going to be the leader. No, they don't, he agrees. But you'll throw support to someone. Would it be President Coin? Or someone else? I don't know. I've never thought about it, I say. If your immediate answer isn't Coin, then you're a threat. You're the face of the rebellion. You may have more influence than any other single person, says Boggs. Outwardly, the most you've ever done is tolerated her. So she'll kill me to shut me up. The minute I say the words, I know they're true. She doesn't need you as a rallying point now. As she said, your primary objective to unite the districts has succeeded, Boggs reminds me. These current Propos could be done without you. There's only one last thing you could do to add fire to the rebellion. Die, I say quietly. Yes. Give us a martyr to fight for, says Boggs. But that's not going to happen under my watch, Soldier Everdeen. I'm planning for you to have a long life. Why? This kind of thinking will only bring him trouble. You don't owe me anything. Because you've earned it, he says. Now get back to your squad. I know I should feel appreciative of Boggs sticking his neck out for me. But really, I'm just frustrated. I mean, how can I steal his hollow and desert now? Betraying him was complicated enough without this whole new layer of debt I already owe him for saving my life. Seeing the cause of my current dilemma calmly pitching his tent back at our site makes me furious. What time is my watch? I ask Jackson. She squints at me in doubt, or maybe she's just trying to get my face in focus. I didn't put you in the rotation. Why not? I ask. I'm not sure you could really shoot Peeta if it came to it, she says. I speak up so the whole squad can hear me clearly. I wouldn't be shooting Peeta. He's gone. Joanna's right. It'd be just like shooting another of the Capitol's mutts. It feels good to say something horrible about him, out loud, in public, after all the humiliation I've felt since his return. Well, that sort of comment isn't recommending you either, says Jackson. Put her in the rotation, I hear Boggs say behind me. Jackson shakes her head and makes a note. Midnight to 4, you're on with me. The dinner whistle sounds, and Gail and I line up at the canteen. Do you want me to kill him? He asks bluntly. That'll get us both sent back for sure, I say. But even though I'm furious, the brutality of the offer rattles me. I can deal with him. You mean until you take off? You and your paper map and possibly a holo if you can get your hands on it? So Gail has not missed my preparations. I hope they haven't been so obvious to the others. None of them know my mind like he does, though. You're not planning on leaving me behind, are you? He asks. Up until this point, I was. But having my hunting partner to watch my back doesn't sound like a bad idea. As your fellow soldier, I have to strongly recommend you stay with your squad. But I can't stop you from coming, can I? He grins. No. Not unless you want me to alert the rest of the army. Squad 451 and the television crew collect dinner from the canteen and gather in a tense circle to eat. At first, I think that PETA is the cause of the unease, but by the end of the meal, I realize more than a few unfriendly looks have been directed my way. This is a quick turnaround, since I'm pretty sure when PETA appeared, the whole team was concerned about how dangerous he might be, especially to me. But it's not until I get a phone call through to Hamish that I understand. What are you trying to do? Provoke him into an attack? He asks me. Of course not. I just want him to leave me alone, I say. Well, he can't. Not after what the Capitol put him through, says Hamish. Look, Coyne may have sent him there hoping he'd kill you, but PETA doesn't know that. He doesn't understand what's happened to him, so you can't blame him. I don't, I say. You do. You're punishing him over and over for things that are out of his control. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't have a fully loaded weapon next to you around the clock, but I think it's time you flipped this little scenario around in your head. If you've been taken by the Capitol and hijacked and then tried to kill PETA, is this the way he would be treating you? Demands Hamish. I fall silent. It isn't. It isn't how he would be treating me at all. He would be trying to get me back at any cost, not shutting me out, abandoning me, greeting me with hostility at every turn. You and me, we made a deal to try to save him. Remember? Hamish says. When I don't respond, he disconnects after a curt, try to remember. The autumn day turns from brisk to cold. Most of the squad hunker down in their sleeping bags. Some sleep under the open sky, close to the heater in the center of our camp, while others retreat to their tents. League One has finally broken down over her sister's death, and her muffled sobs reach us through the canvas. I huddle in my tent, thinking over Hamish's words, realizing with shame that my fixation with assassinating Snow has allowed me to ignore a much more difficult problem. Trying to rescue PETA from the shadowy world the hijacking has stranded him in. I don't know how to find him, let alone lead him out. I can't even conceive of a plan. It makes the task of crossing a loaded arena, locating Snow, and putting a bullet through his head look like child's play. At midnight, I crawl out of my tent and position myself on a camp stool near the heater to take my watch with Jackson. Boggs told PETA to sleep out in full view where the rest of us could keep an eye on him. He isn't sleeping, though. Instead, he sits with his bag pulled up to his chest, clumsily trying to make knots in a short length of rope. I know it well. It's the one Finnick lent me that night in the bunker. Seeing it in his hands, it's like Finnick's echoing what Hamish just said, that I've cast off PETA. Now might be a good time to begin to remedy that, if I could think of something to say. But I can't, so I don't. I just let the sounds of soldiers breathing fill the night. After about an hour, PETA speaks up. These last couple of years must have been exhausting for you. Trying to decide whether to kill me or not. Back and forth, back and forth. That seems grossly unfair, and my first impulse is to say something cutting. But I revisit my conversation with Hamish and try to take the first tentative step in Peeta's direction. I never wanted to kill you, except when I thought you were helping the careers kill me. After that, I always thought of you as an ally. That's a good safe word. Empty of any emotional obligation, but non-threatening. Ally. Peeta says the word slowly, tasting it. Friend, lover, victor, enemy, fiance, target, mutt, neighbor, hunter, tribute, ally. All added to the list of words I used to try to figure you out. He weaves the rope in and out of his fingers. The problem is, I can't tell what's real anymore and what's made up. The cessation of rhythmic breathing suggests that either people have woken or have never really been asleep at all. I suspect the latter. Finnick's voice rises from a bundle in the shadows. Then you should ask, Peeta. That's what Annie does. Ask who? Peeta says. Who can I trust? Well, us for starters. We're your squad, says Jackson. You're my guards, he points out. That too, she says. But you saved a lot of lives in 13. It's not the kind of thing we forget. In the quiet that follows, I try to imagine not being able to tell illusion from reality. Not knowing if Prim or my mother loved me, if Snow was my enemy, if the person across the heater saved or sacrificed me. With very little effort, my life rapidly morphs into a nightmare. I suddenly want to tell Peeta everything about who he is and who I am and how we ended up here. But I don't know how to start. Worthless. I'm worthless.
That's definitely.
At a few minutes before 4, Peeta turns to me again. Your favorite color? It's green? That's right. Then I think of something to add. And yours is orange. Orange? He seems unconvinced. Not bright orange, but soft, like the sunset. I say. At least that's what you told me once. Oh. He closes his eyes briefly, maybe trying to conjure up that sunset. Then nods his head. Thank you. But more words tumble out. You're a painter. You're a baker. You like to sleep with the windows open. You never take sugar in your tea, and you always double knot your shoelaces. Then I dive into my tent before I do something stupid like cry. In the morning, Gail, Finnick, and I go out to shoot some glass off the buildings for the camera crew. When we get back to camp, Peeta's sitting in a circle with the soldiers from 13, who are armed but talking openly with him. Jackson has devised a game called Real or Not Real to help Peeta. He mentions something he thinks happened, and they tell him if it's true or imagined, usually followed by a brief explanation. Most of the people from 12 were killed in the fire. Real. Less than 900 of you made it to 13 alive. The fire was my fault. Not real. President Snow destroyed 12 the way he did 13 to send a message to the rebels. This seems like a good idea until I realize that I'll be the only one who can confirm or deny most of what weighs on him. Jackson breaks us up into watches. She matches up Finnick, Gale, and me, each with a soldier from 13. This way, Peeta will always have access to someone who knows him more personally. It's not a steady conversation. Peeta spends a long time considering even small pieces of information, like where people bought their soap back home. Gale fills him in on a lot of stuff about 12. Finnick is the expert on both of Peeta's games, as he was a mentor in the first and a tribute in the second. But since Peeta's greatest confusion centers around me, and not everything can be explained simply, Our exchanges are painful and loaded, even though we touch on only the most superficial of details. The color of my dress in 7. My preference for cheese buns, the name of our math teacher when we were little. Reconstructing his memory of me is excruciating. Perhaps it isn't even possible after what Snow did to him. But it does feel right to help him try. The next afternoon, we're notified that the whole squad is needed to stage a fairly complicated propo. Pete has been right about one thing. Coyne and Plutarch are unhappy with the quality of footage they're getting from the Star Squad. Very dull, very uninspiring. The obvious response is that they never let us do anything but play act with our guns. However, this is not about defending ourselves, it's about coming up with a usable product. So today, a special block has been set aside for filming. It even has a couple of active pods on it. One unleashes a spray of gunfire, the other nets the invader and traps them for either interrogation or execution, depending on the captor's preference. But it's still an unimportant residential block with nothing of strategic consequence. The television crew means to provide a sense of heightened jeopardy by releasing smoke bombs and adding gunfire sound effects. We suit up in heavy protective gear, even the crew, as if we're heading into the heart of battle. Those of us with specialty weapons are allowed to take them along with our guns. Boggs gives Peeta back his gun too, although he makes sure to tell him in a loud voice that it's only loaded with blanks. Peeta just shrugs. I'm not much of a shot anyway. He seems preoccupied with watching Pollux, to the point where it's getting a little worrisome, when he finally puzzles it out and begins to speak with agitation. You're an Avox, aren't you? I can tell by the way you swallow. There were 2 Avoxes with me in prison, Darius and Lavinia, but the guards mostly called them the Redheads. They'd been our servants in the training center, so they arrested them too. I watched them being tortured to death. She was lucky. They used too much voltage and her heart stopped right off. It took days to finish him off, beating, cutting off parts. They kept asking him questions, but he couldn't speak. He just made these horrible animal sounds. They didn't want information, they wanted me to see it. Peeta looks around at our stunned faces as if waiting for a reply. When none is forthcoming, he asks, real or not real? The lack of response upsets him more. Real or not real? He demands. Real, says Boggs. At least, to the best of my knowledge. Real. Peeta sags. I thought so. There was nothing shiny about it. He wanders away from the group, muttering something about fingers and toes. I move to Gale, press my forehead into the body armor where his chest should be, feel his arm tighten around me. We finally know the name of the girl who we watched the Capitol abduct from the woods of 12, the fate of the peacekeeper friend who tried to keep Gale alive. This is no time to call up happy moments of remembrance. They lost their lives because of me. I add them to my personal list of kills that began in the arena and now includes thousands. When I look up, I see it has taken Gale differently. His expression says that there are not enough mountains to crush, enough cities to destroy. It promises death. With Peeta's grisly account fresh in our minds, we crunch through the streets of broken glass until we reach our target, the block we are to take. It is a real, if small, goal to accomplish. We gather around Boggs to examine the hollow projection of the street. The gunfire pod is positioned about a third of the way down, just above an apartment awning. We should be able to trigger it with bullets. The net pod is at the far end, almost the next corner. This will require someone to set off the body sensor mechanism. Everyone volunteers except Peeta, who doesn't seem to know quite what's going on. I don't get picked. I get sent to Masala, who dabs some makeup on my face for the anticipated close-ups. The squad positions itself under Boggs' direction, and then we have to wait for Cressida to get the cameramen in place as well. They're both to our left, with Castor toward the front and Pollux bringing up the rear, so they'll be sure not to record each other. Masala sets off a couple of smoke charges for atmosphere. Since this is both a mission and a shoot, I'm about to ask who's in charge, my commander or my director, when Cressida calls, "Action!" We slowly proceed down the hazy street, just like one of our exercises in the block. Everyone has at least one section of windows to blow out, but Gale's assigned the real target. When he hits the pod, we take cover, ducking into doorways or flattening onto the pretty light orange and pink paving stones, as a hail of bullets sweeps back and forth over our heads. After a while, Boggs orders us forward. Cressida stops us before we can rise, since she needs some close-up shots. We take turns reenacting our responses, falling to the ground, grimacing, diving into alcoves. We know it's supposed to be serious business, but the whole thing feels a little ridiculous. Especially when it turns out that I'm not the worst actor in the squad. Not by a long shot. We're all laughing so hard at Mitchell's attempt to project his idea of desperation, which involves teeth grinding and nostrils flaring, that Boggs has to reprimand us. "Pull it together, 451, he says firmly. But you can see him suppressing a smile as he's double-checking the next pod, positioning the hollow to find the best light in the smoky air, still facing us as his left foot stepped back onto the orange paving stone, triggering the bomb that blows off his legs. Chapter 20. It's as if in an instant, a painted window shatters, revealing the ugly world behind it. Laughter changes to screams. Blood stains pastel stones. Real smoke darkens the special effects stuff made for television. A second explosion seems to split the air and leaves my ears ringing, but I can't make out where it came from. I reach Boggs first, try to make sense of the torn flesh, missing limbs, to find something to stem the red flow from his body. Holmes pushes me aside, wrenching open a first aid kit. Boggs clutches my wrist. His face, gray with dying and ash, seems to be receding. But his next words are in order. The hollow. The hollow. I scramble around, digging through chunks of tile slick with blood, shuddering when I encounter bits of warm flesh. Find it rammed into a stairwell with one of Boggs's boots. Retrieve it, wiping it clean with bare hands as I return it to my commander. Holmes has the stump of Boggs's left thigh cupped by some sort of compression bandage, but it's already soaked through. He's trying to tourniquet the other above the existing knee. The rest of the squad has gathered in a protective formation around the crew and us. Phoenix attempting to revive Masala, who was thrown into a wall by the explosion. Jackson's barking into a field communicator, trying unsuccessfully to alert the camp to send medics, but I know it's too late. As a child, watching my mother work, I learned that once a pool of blood has reached a certain size, there's no going back. I kneel beside Boggs, prepared to repeat the role I played with Rue, with the morphling from 6, giving him someone to hold on to as he's released from life. But Boggs has both hands working the hollow. He's typing in a command, pressing his thumb to the screen for print recognition, speaking a string of letters and numbers in response to a prompt. A green shaft of light bursts out of the hollow and illuminates his face. He says, "Unfit for command. Transfer of prime security clearance to Squad 451 Soldier Katniss Everdeen." It's all he can do to turn the hollow toward my face. "Say your name." "Katniss Everdeen," I say into the green shaft. Suddenly, it has me trapped in its light. I can't move or even blink as images flicker rapidly before me. Scanning me, recording me, blinding me. It vanishes, and I shake my head to clear it. "What did you do?" "Prepare to retreat," Jackson hollers. Phoenix yelling something back. gesturing to the end of the block where we entered. Black, oily matter spouts like a geyser from the street, billowing between the buildings, creating an impenetrable wall of darkness. It seems to be neither liquid nor gas, mechanical nor natural. Surely it's lethal. There's no heading back the way we came. Deafening gunfire as Gale and League One begin to blast a path across the stones toward the far end of the block. I don't know what they're doing until another bomb, 10 yards away, detonates, opening a hole in the street. Then I realize this is a rudimentary attempt at minesweeping. Holmes and I latch onto Boggs and begin to drag him after Gale. Agony takes over and he's crying out in pain, and I want to stop to find a better way, but the blackness is rising above the buildings, swelling, rolling at us like a wave. I'm yanked backward, lose my grip on Boggs, slam into the stones. PETA looks down at me, gone, mad, flashing back into the land of the hijacked, his gun raised over me, descending to crush my skull. I roll, hear the butt slam into the street, catch the tumble of bodies out of the corner of my eye as Mitchell tackles PETA and pins him to the ground. But PETA, always so powerful and now fueled by tracker-jacker insanity, gets his feet under Mitchell's belly and launches him farther down the block. There's a loud snap of a trap as the pod triggers. 4 cables attached to tracks on the buildings break through the stones, dragging up the net that encases Mitchell. It makes no sense how instantly bloodied he is until we see the barbs sticking from the wire that encases him. I know it immediately. It decorated the top of the fence around 12. As I call to him not to move, I gag on the smell of the blackness, thick, tar-like. The wave has crested and begun to fall. Gale and League One shoot through the front door lock of the corner building, then begin to fire at the cables holding Mitchell's net. Others are restraining PETA now. I lunge back to Boggs, and Holmes and I drag him inside the apartment, through someone's pink and white velvet living room, down a hallway hung with family photos, onto the marble floor of a kitchen, where we collapse. Castor and Pollux carry in a writhing PETA between them. Somehow Jackson gets cuffs on him, but it only makes him wilder, and they're forced to lock him in a closet. In the living room, the front door slams. People shout. Then footsteps pound down the hall as the black wave roars past the building. From the kitchen, we can hear the windows groan, shatter. The noxious tar smell permeates the air. Finnick carries in Masala. League One and Cressida stumble into the room after them, coughing. "Gale!" I shriek. He's there, slamming the kitchen door shut behind him, choking out one word. "Fumes!" Castor and Pollux grab towels, aprons to stuff in the cracks as Gale retches into a bright yellow sink. "Mitchell?" asks Holmes. League One just shakes her head. Boggs forces the hollow into my hand. His lips are moving, but I can't make out what he's saying. I lean my ear down to his mouth to catch his harsh whisper. "Don't trust them. Don't go back. Kill PETA. Do what you came to do." I draw back so I can see his face. "What? Boggs? Boggs?" His eyes are still open, but dead. Pressed in my hand, glued to it by his blood, is the hollow. PETA's feet slamming into the closet door break up the ragged breathing of the others. But even as we listen, his energy seems to ebb. The kicks diminish to an irregular drumming. Then nothing. I wonder if he, too, is dead. "He's gone?" Finnick asks, looking down at Boggs. I nod. "We need to get out of here. Now. We just set off a street full of pods. You can bet they've got us on surveillance tapes." "Count on it," says Castor. "All the streets are covered by surveillance cameras. I bet they set off the black wave manually when they saw us taping the prop up." Our radio communicators went dead almost immediately. Probably an electromagnetic pulse device, but I'll get us back to camp. Give me the hollow. Jackson reaches for the unit, but I clutch it to my chest. "No. Boggs gave it to me," I say. "Don't be ridiculous," she snaps. Of course she thinks it's hers. she's second in command. It's true, says Holmes. He transferred the prime security clearance to her while he was dying. I saw it. Why would he do that? Demands Jackson. Why indeed? My head's reeling from the ghastly events of the last 5 minutes. Boggs, mutilated, dying, dead. Peeta's homicidal rage. Mitchell bloody and netted and swallowed by that foul black wave. I turn to Boggs, very badly needing him alive. Suddenly sure that he, and maybe he alone, is completely on my side. I think of his last orders. Don't trust them. Don't go back. Kill Peeta. Do what you came to do. What did he mean? Don't trust who?
Then,
The rebels? Coin? The people looking at me right now? I won't go back. But he must know I can't just fire a bullet through Peeta's head. Can I? Should I? Did Boggs guess that what I really came to do is desert and kill Snow on my own? I can't work all of this out now. So I just decide to carry out the first 2 orders, to not trust anyone, and to move deeper into the capital. But how can I justify this? Make them let me keep the hollow? Because I'm on a special mission for President Coin. I think Boggs was the only one who knew about it. This in no way convinces Jackson. To do what? Why not tell them the truth? It's as plausible as anything I'll come up with. But it must seem like a real mission, not revenge. To assassinate President Snow before the loss of life from this war makes our population unsustainable. I don't believe you, says Jackson. As your current commander, I order you to transfer the prime security clearance over to me. No, I say. That would be in direct violation of President Coin's orders. Guns are pointed. Half the squad at Jackson, half at me. Someone's about to die when Cressida speaks up. It's true. That's why we're here. Plutarch wants it televised. He thinks if we can film the Mockingjay assassinating Snow, it will end the war. This gives even Jackson pause. Then she gestures with her gun toward the closet. And why is he here? There she has me. I can think of no sane reason that Coin would send an unstable boy programmed to kill me along on such a key assignment. It really weakens my story. Cressida comes to my aid again. Because the 2 post-games interviews with Caesar Flickerman were shot in President Snow's personal quarters. Plutarch thinks Peeta may be of some use as a guide in a location we have little knowledge of. I want to ask Cressida why she's lying for me, why she's fighting for us to go on with my self-appointed mission. Now's not the time. We have to go, says Gale. I'm following Katniss. If you don't want to, head back to camp, but let's move. Holmes unlocks the closet and heaves an unconscious Peeta over his shoulder. Ready. Boggs, says League One. We can't take him. He'd understand, says Finnick. He frees Boggs's gun from his shoulder and slings the strap over his own. Lead on, Soldier Everdeen. I don't know how to lead on. I look at the hollow for direction. It's still activated, but it might as well be dead for all the good that does me. There's no time for fiddling around with the buttons, trying to figure out how to work it. I don't know how to use this. Boggs said you would help me, I tell Jackson. He said I could count on you. Jackson scowls, snatches the hollow from me, and taps in a command. An intersection comes up. If we go out the kitchen door, there's a small courtyard, then the backside of another corner apartment unit. We're looking at an overview of the 4 streets that meet at the intersection. I try to get my bearings as I stare at the cross-section of the map, blinking with pods in every direction. And those are only the pods Plutarch knows about. The hollow didn't indicate that the block we just left was mined, had the black geyser, or that the net was made from barbed wire. Besides that, there may be peacekeepers to deal with, now that they know our position. I bite the inside of my lip, feeling everyone's eyes on me. Put on your masks. We're going out the way we came in. Instant objections. I raise my voice over them. If the wave was that powerful, then it may have triggered and absorbed other pods in our path. People stop to consider this. Pollux makes a few quick signs to his brother. It may have disabled the cameras as well. Castor translates. Coated the lenses. Gale props one of his boots on the counter and examines the splatter of black on the toe. Scrapes it with a kitchen knife from a block on the counter. It's not corrosive. I think it was meant to either suffocate or poison us. Probably our best shot, says League One. Masks go on. Finnick adjusts Peta's mask over his lifeless face. Cressida and League One prop up a woozy masala between them. I'm waiting for someone to take the point position when I remember that's my job now. I push on the kitchen door and meet with no resistance. A half-inch layer of the black goo has spread from the living room about 3/4 of the way down the hall. When I gingerly test it with the toe of my boot, I find it has the consistency of a gel. I lift my foot, and after stretching slightly, it springs back into place. I take 3 steps into the gel and look back. No footprints. It's the first good thing that's happened today. The gel becomes slightly thicker as I cross the living room. I ease open the front door, expecting gallons of the stuff to pour in, but it holds its form. The pink and orange block seems to have been dipped in glossy black paint and set out to dry. Paving stones, buildings, even the rooftops are coated in the gel. A large teardrop hangs above the street. 2 shapes project from it. A gun barrel and a human hand. Mitchell. I wait on the sidewalk staring up at him until the entire group has joined me. If anyone needs to go back, for whatever reason, now is the time, I say. No questions asked, no hard feelings. No one seems inclined to retreat. So I start moving into the Capitol, knowing we don't have much time. The gel's deeper here, 4 to 6 inches, and makes a sucking sound each time you pick up your foot, but it still covers our tracks. The wave must have been enormous, with tremendous power behind it as it's affected several blocks that lie ahead. And though I tread with care, I think my instinct was right about its triggering other pods. 1 block is sprinkled with the golden bodies of tracker jackers. They must have been set free only to succumb to the fumes. A little farther along, an entire apartment building has collapsed and lies in a mound under the gel. I sprint across the intersections, holding up a hand for the others to wait while I look for trouble. But the wave seems to have dismantled the pods far better than any squad of rebels could. On the 5th block, I can tell that we've reached the point where the wave began to peter out. The gel's only an inch deep, and I can see baby blue rooftops peeking out across the next intersection. The afternoon light has faded, and we badly need to get under cover and form a plan. I choose an apartment 2/3 of the way down the block. Holmes jimmies the lock, and I order the others inside. I stay on the street for just a minute, watching the last of our footprints fade away, then close the door behind me. Flashlights built into our guns illuminate a large living room with mirrored walls that throw our faces back at us at every turn. Gale checks the windows, which show no damage, and removes his mask. It's all right. You can smell it, but it's not too strong. The apartment seems to be laid out exactly like the first one we took refuge in. The gel blacks out any natural daylight in the front, but some light still slips through the shutters in the kitchen. Along the hallway are 2 bedrooms with baths. A spiral staircase in the living room leads up to an open space that composes much of the 2nd floor. There are no windows upstairs, but the lights have been left on, probably by someone hastily evacuating. A huge television screen, blank but glowing softly, occupies one wall. Plush chairs and sofas are strewn around the room. This is where we congregate, slump into upholstery, try to catch our breath. Jackson has her gun trained on Peta even though he's still cuffed and unconscious, draped across a deep blue sofa where Holmes deposited him. What on earth am I going to do with him? With the crew? With everybody, frankly, besides Gale and Finnick? Because I'd rather track down Snow with those two than without them. But I can't lead 10 people through the Capitol on a pretend mission, even if I could read the Hollow. Could I have sent them back when I had a chance? Or was it too dangerous? Both to them personally and to my mission? Maybe I shouldn't have listened to Boggs because he might have been in some delusional death state. Maybe I should just come clean. But then Jackson would take over and we'd end up back at camp, where I'd have coin to answer to. Just as the complexity of the mess I've dragged everybody into begins to overload my brain, a distant chain of explosions sends a tremor through the room. It wasn't close, Jackson assures us. A good 4 or 5 blocks away. Where we left Boggs, says League One. Although no one has made a move toward it, the television flares to life, emitting a high-pitched beeping sound, bringing half our party to its feet. It's all right, calls Cressida. It's just an emergency broadcast. Every Capitol television is automatically activated for it. There we are, on screen, just after the bomb took out Boggs. A voiceover tells the audience what they are viewing as we try to regroup, react to the black gel shooting from the street, lose control of the situation. We watch the chaos that follows until the wave blots out the cameras. The last thing we see is Gale, alone on the street, trying to shoot through the cables that hold Mitchell aloft. The reporter identifies Gale, Finnick, Boggs, Peta, Cressida, and me by name. There's no aerial footage. Boggs must have been right about their hovercraft capacity, says Castor. I didn't notice this, but I guess it's the kind of thing a cameraman picks up on. Coverage continues from the courtyard behind the apartment where we took shelter. Peacekeepers line the roof across from our former hideout. Shells are launched into the row of apartments, setting off the chain of explosions we heard, and the building collapses into rubble and dust. Now we cut to a live feed. A reporter stands on the roof with the peacekeepers. Behind her, the apartment block burns. Firefighters try to control the blaze with water hoses. We are pronounced dead. Finally, a bit of luck, says Holmes. I guess he's right. Certainly it's better than having the Capitol in pursuit of us. But I just keep imagining how this will be playing back in 13. Where my mother and Prim, Hazel and the kids, Annie, Hamish, and a whole lot of people from 13 think that they have just seen us die. My father, he just lost my sister, and now, says League One. We watch as they play the footage over and over, revel in their victory, especially over me. Break away to do a montage of the Mockingjays' rise to rebel power. I think they've had this part prepared for a while because it seems pretty polished. And then go live so a couple of reporters can discuss my well-deserved violent end. Later, they promise, Snow will make an official statement. The screen fades back to a glow. The rebels made no attempt to break in during the broadcast, which leads me to believe they think it's true. If that's so, we really are on our own. So now that we're dead, what's our next move? Asks Gale. Isn't it obvious? No one even knew Peta had regained consciousness. I don't know how long he's been watching, but by the look of misery on his face, long enough to see what happened on the street. How he went mad, tried to bash my head in, and hurled Mitchell into the pod. He painfully pushes himself up to a sitting position and directs his words to Gale. Our next move is to kill me. Chapter 21. That makes 2 requests for Peta's death in less than an hour. Don't be ridiculous, says Jackson. I just murdered a member of our squad, shouts Peta. You pushed him off you. You couldn't have known he would trigger the net at that exact spot, says Finnick, trying to calm him. Who cares? He's dead, isn't he? Tears begin to run down Peeta's face. I didn't know. I've never seen myself like that before. Katniss is right. I'm the monster. I'm the mutt. I'm the one Snow has turned into a weapon. It's not your fault, Peeta, says Finnick. You can't take me with you. It's only a matter of time before I kill someone else. Peeta looks around at our conflicted faces. Maybe you think it's kinder to just dump me somewhere. Let me take my chances, but that's the same thing as handing me over to the Capitol. Do you think you'd be doing me a favor by sending me back to Snow? Peeta, back in Snow's hands, tortured and tormented until no bits of his former self will ever emerge again. For some reason, the last stanza to The Hanging Tree starts running through my head. The one where the man wants his lover dead, rather than have her face the evil that awaits her in the world. Are you coming to the tree? Wear a necklace of rope, side by side with me. Strange things did happen here, no stranger would it be if we met up at midnight in the hanging tree. I'll kill you before that happens, says Gale. I promise. Peeta hesitates, as if considering the reliability of this offer, and then shakes his head. It's no good. What if you're not there to do it? I want one of those poison pills like the rest of you have. Nightlock. There's one pill back at camp in its special slot on the sleeve of my Mockingjay suit. But there's another in the breast pocket of my uniform. Interesting that they didn't issue one to Peeta. Perhaps Coin thought he might take it before he had the opportunity to kill me. It's unclear if Peeta means he'd finish himself off now, to spare us having to murder him, or only if the Capitol took him prisoner again. In the state he's in, I expect it would be sooner rather than later. It would certainly make things easier on the rest of us, not to have to shoot him. It would certainly simplify the problem of dealing with his homicidal episodes. I don't know if it's the pods, or the fear, or watching Boggs die, but I feel the arena all around me. It's as if I've never left, really. Once again, I'm battling not only for my own survival, but for Peeta's as well. How satisfying, how entertaining it would be for Snow to have me kill him, to have Peeta's death on my conscience for whatever is left of my life. It's not about you, I say. We're on a mission, and you're necessary to it. I look to the rest of the group. Think we might find some food here? Besides the medical kit and cameras, we have nothing but our uniforms and our weapons. Half of us stay to guard Peeta or keep an eye out for Snow's broadcast, while the others hunt for something to eat. Masala proves most valuable because he lived in a near replica of this apartment, and knows where people would be most likely to stash food. Like how there's a storage space concealed by a mirrored panel in the bedroom, or how easy it is to pop out the ventilation screen in the hallway. So even though the kitchen cupboards are bare, we find over 30 canned goods and several boxes of cookies. The hoarding disgusts the soldiers raised in 13. Isn't this illegal? Says League 1. On the contrary, in the Capitol you'd be considered stupid not to do it, says Masala. Even before the Quarter Quell, people were starting to stock up on scarce supplies, while others went without, says League 1. Right, says Masala. That's how it works here. Fortunately, or we wouldn't have dinner, says Gale. Everybody grab a can. Some of our company seem reluctant to do this, but it's as good a method as any. I'm really not in the mood to divvy up everything into 11 equal parts, factoring in age, body weight, and physical output. I poke around in the pile, about to settle on some cod chowder, when Peeta holds out a can to me. Here. I take it, not knowing what to expect. The label reads, lamb stew. I press my lips together at the memories of rain dripping through stones, my inept attempts at flirting, and the aroma of my favorite capital dish in the chilly air. So some part of it must still be in his head, too. How happy, how hungry, how close we were when that picnic basket arrived outside our cave. Thanks. I pop open the top. It even has dried plums. I bend the lid and use it as a makeshift spoon, scooping a bit into my mouth. Now this place tastes like the arena, too. We're passing around a box of fancy cream-filled cookies when the beeping starts again. The seal of Pan Am lights up on the screen and remains there while the anthem plays. And then they begin to show images of the dead, just as they did with the tributes in the arena. They start with the four faces of our TV crew, followed by Boggs, Gale, Finnick, PETA, and me. Except for Boggs, they don't bother with the soldiers from 13, either because they have no idea who they are or because they know they won't mean anything to the audience. Then the man himself appears, seated at his desk, a flag draped behind him, the fresh white rose gleaming in his lapel. I think he might have recently had more work done because his lips are puffier than usual, and his prep team really needs to use a lighter hand with his blush. Snow congratulates the peacekeepers on a masterful job, honors them for ridding the country of the menace called the Mockingjay. With my death, he predicts a turning of the tide in the war, since the demoralized rebels have no one left to follow. And what was I, really? A poor, unstable girl with a small talent with a bow and arrow. Not a great thinker, not the mastermind of the rebellion. Merely a face plucked from the rabble because I had caught the nation's attention with my antics in the games. But necessary, so very necessary, because the rebels have no real leader among them. Somewhere in District 13, BD hits a switch, because now it's not President Snow, but President Coin who's looking at us. She introduces herself to Pan Am, identifies herself as the head of the rebellion, and then gives my eulogy. Praise for the girl who survived the Seam and the Hunger Games, then turned a country of slaves into an army of freedom fighters. Dead or alive, Katniss Everdeen will remain the face of this rebellion. If ever you waver in your resolve, think of the Mockingjay, and in her you will find the strength you need to rid Pan Am of its oppressors. I had no idea how much I meant to her, I say, which brings a laugh from Gale and questioning looks from the others. Up comes a heavily doctored photo of me, looking beautiful and fierce with a bunch of flames flickering behind me. No words, no slogan. My face is all they need now. BD gives the reins back to a very controlled Snow. I have the feeling the president thought the emergency channel was impenetrable, and someone will end up dead tonight because it was breached. Tomorrow morning, when we pull Katniss Everdeen's body from the ashes, we will see exactly who the Mockingjay is. A dead girl who could save no one, not even herself. Seal, anthem, and out. Except that you won't find her, says Finnick to the empty screen, voicing what we're all probably thinking. The grace period will be brief. Once they dig through those ashes and come up missing 11 bodies, they'll know we escaped. We can get a head start on them at least, I say. Suddenly, I'm so tired. All I want is to lie down on a nearby green plush sofa and go to sleep, to cocoon myself in a comforter made of rabbit fur and goose down. Instead, I pull out the holo and insist that Jackson talk me through the most basic commands, which are really about entering the coordinates of the nearest map grid intersection, so that I can at least begin to operate the thing myself. As the holo projects our surroundings, I feel my heart sink even further. We must be moving closer to crucial targets, because the number of pods has noticeably increased. How can we possibly move forward into this bouquet of blinking lights without detection? We can't. And if we can't, we are trapped like birds in a net. I decide it's best not to adopt some sort of superior attitude when I'm with these people. especially when my eyes keep drifting to that green sofa. So I say, any ideas? Why don't we start by ruling out possibilities, says Finnick. The street is not a possibility. The rooftops are just as bad as the street, says League One. We still might have a chance to withdraw, go back the way we came, says Holmes. But that would mean a failed mission. A pang of guilt hits me since I've fabricated said mission. It was never intended for all of us to go forward. You just had the misfortune to be with me. Well, that's a moot point. We're with you now, says Jackson. So we can't stay put. We can't move up. We can't move laterally. I think that just leaves one option. Underground, says Gale. Underground, which I hate, like mines and tunnels and 13. Underground, where I dread dying, which is stupid because even if I die above ground, the next thing they'll do is bury me underground anyway. The Hollow can show subterranean as well as street-level pods. I see that when we go underground, the clean, dependable lines of the street plan are interlaced with a twisting, turning mess of tunnels. The pods look less numerous, though. 2 doors down, a vertical tube connects our row of apartments to the tunnels. To reach the tube apartment, we will need to squeeze through a maintenance shaft that runs the length of the building. We can enter the shaft through the back of a closet space on the upper floor. Okay, then. Let's make it look like we've never been here, I say. We erase all signs of our stay, send the empty cans down a trash chute, pocket the full ones for later, flip sofa cushions smeared with blood, wipe traces of gel from the tiles. There's no fixing the latch on the front door, but we lock a second bolt, which will at least keep the door from swinging open on contact. Finally, there's only PETA to contend with. He plants himself on the blue sofa, refusing to budge. I'm not going. I'll either disclose your position or hurt someone else. Snow's people will find you, says Finnick. Then leave me a pill. I'll only take it if I have to, says PETA. That's not an option. Come along, says Jackson. Or you'll what? Shoot me? Asks PETA. We'll knock you out and drag you with us, says Holmes, which will both slow us down and endanger us. Stop being noble. I don't care if I die. He turns to me pleading now. Katniss, please. Don't you see I want to be out of this? The trouble is, I do see. Why can't I just let him go? Slip him a pill, pull the trigger. Is it because I care too much about PETA, or too much about letting Snow win? Have I turned him into a piece in my private games? That's despicable, but I'm not sure it's beneath me. If it's true, it would be kindest to kill PETA here and now. But for better or worse, I am not motivated by kindness. We're wasting time. Are you coming voluntarily, or do we knock you out? PETA buries his face in his hands for a few moments, then rises to join us. Should we free his hands? Asks League One. No! PETA growls at her, drawing his cuffs in close to his body. No, I echo, but I want the key. Jackson passes it over without a word. I slip it into my pants pocket, where it clicks against the pearl. When Holmes pries open the small metal door to the maintenance shaft, we encounter another problem. There's no way the insect shells will be able to fit through the narrow passage. Castor and Pollux remove them and attach emergency backup cameras. Each is the size of a shoebox and probably works about as well. Masala can't think of anywhere better to hide the bulky shells, so we end up dumping them in the closet. Leaving such an easy trail to follow frustrates me, but what else can we do? Even going single file, holding our packs and gear out to the side, it's a tight fit. We sidestep our way past the first apartment and break into the second. In this apartment, one of the bedrooms has a door marked utility instead of a bathroom. Behind the door is the room with the entrance to the tube. Masala frowns at the wide circular cover, for a moment returning to his own fussy world. It's why no one ever wants the center unit. Workmen coming and going whenever and no second bath, but the rent's considerably cheaper. Then he notices Finnick's amused expression and adds, never mind. The tube cover's simple to unlatch. A wide ladder with rubber treads on the steps allows for a swift, easy descent into the bowels of the city. We gather at the foot of the ladder, waiting for our eyes to adjust to the dim strips of light, breathing in the mixture of chemicals, mildew, and sewage. Pollux, pale and sweaty, reaches out and latches onto Castor's wrist, like he might fall over if there isn't someone to steady him. My brother worked down here after he became an AVOX, says Castor. Of course. Who else would they get to maintain these dank, evil-smelling passages mined with pods? Took 5 years before we were able to buy his way up to ground level. Didn't see the sun once. Under better conditions, on a day with fewer horrors and more rest, someone would surely know what to say. Instead, we all stand there for a long time, trying to formulate a response. Finally, PETA turns to Pollux. Well, then you just became our most valuable asset. Castor laughs, and Pollux manages a smile. We're halfway down the first tunnel when I realize what was so remarkable about the exchange. PETA sounded like his old self, the one who could always think of the right thing to say when nobody else could. Ironic, encouraging, a little funny, but not at anyone's expense. I glance back at him as he trudges along under his guards, Gale and Jackson, his eyes fixed on the ground, his shoulders hunched forward. So dispirited. But for a moment, he was really here. PETA called it right. Pollux turns out to be worth 10 hollows. There is a simple network of wide tunnels that directly corresponds to the main street plan above, underlying the major avenues and cross streets. It's called the transfer, since small trucks use it to deliver goods around the city. During the day, its many pods are deactivated, but at night, it's a minefield. However, hundreds of additional passages, utility shafts, train tracks, and drainage tubes form a multi-level maze. Pollux knows details that would lead to disaster for a newcomer, like which offshoots might require gas masks, or have live wires or rats the size of beavers. He alerts us to the gush of water that sweeps through the sewers periodically, anticipates the time the AVOXs will be changing shifts, leads us into damp, obscure pipes to dodge the nearly silent passage of cargo trains. Most important, he has knowledge of the cameras. There aren't many down in this gloomy, misty place, except in the transfer, but we keep well out of their way. Under Pollux's guidance, we make good time, remarkable time if you compare it to our above-ground travel. After about 6 hours, fatigue takes over. It's 3 a.m, so I figure we still have a few hours before our bodies are discovered missing. They search through the rubble of the whole block of apartments in case we tried to escape through the shafts, and the hunt begins. When I suggest we rest, no one objects. Pollux finds a small, warm room humming with machines loaded with levers and dials. He holds up his fingers to indicate we must be gone in 4 hours. Jackson, we're...
Oh, thanks for watching, bye, goodbye. That was a long one. Probably not on that one. Straight point one, especially now I did this switch these around with dark frames. It was ages, wasn't it? The other cameras die what next episode of the organising of 8 times. I'm gonna hate that. I'm not tired, I'm not gonna do this boring task. No, yeah. That fixed a hole in that actually. No, I did not. So many. Why did I make it so tall? I was meant to be taller, but you know. Border. What? I don't think they need every 8 time on the game. I didn't make it work. Like, anyway, goodbye, everybody.